Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to talk about grip, and it is one of the most important things in the golf swing. However, many players avoid it because it seems too basic. But when we see Scotty Scheffler working with a grip trainer on the range and really looking at his grip, we know that it must be important, and it's something that all the best players in the world always keep an eye on and maintain it, because it can change over time. But we want to keep it maintained, and we want to match it up to our swing and what we do. Now, over the years, it's been seen there's a neutral grip, a strong grip, and a weak grip, and I'll go through those things after we learn how to build a grip. But there's no right or wrong in regards to whether you are neutral, strong, or weak. It just simply depends on how it matches up to you and your golf swing and what things are happening. And I'll talk about how this can be good for some players, and for other players it might not be good, and what grip styles would match up with those different types of players. So first and foremost, if we're looking at the grip on how to build it, for most players to begin with, if you're a beginner, I would just start by building a neutral grip, and then we can adjust it based on what we need over time, whether we need to go stronger or weaker. But there are some key elements that we need to kind of get in check when we're making the grip, and I'll talk about the biggest mistakes that I see players make, and then the things that we want to do to make sure we're doing the right things to get the most out of the golf club when we are gripping the club. So first and foremost, when we grip the club, and I'll speak for all of this, obviously right-handed golfer, just flip it if you're a lefty. We want to begin with the lead hand, so left hand for a right-handed player. And the main thing is going to be that when we begin to build our grip, we are gripping it more closer to the fingers or the base of the fingers and not in the palm of the hand. And the main reason for this is it creates leverage on the club. So when I grip it here in the fingers and then it rests on the heel pad, I can hinge the club up and down really, really easy, which can help us unweight the club when we go back. If I was to grip this through the palm of the hand, it makes it really difficult. I can't really hinge that club as much, and it then makes the club heavy. So when we're looking halfway back in the backswing, if I don't have the ability to kind of set that club and hinge it upwards, the club is really heavy, and then I'm going to start reacting to what the club's doing rather than me being able to control the club. So first and foremost, we want to get in the base of the fingers so that we can create leverage and hinge the club up and down, so that when we get in the backswing, the club can then hinge naturally as we go back to make it lighter so that we can get more club head speed and hit the ball longer. The other reason we need to be able to hinge the club is we also need to be able to unhinge the club so that we can strike the ground on the way down and create speed and good contact. So that would be the first thing. The next thing would be, as we get the club in that position, base of the fingers diagonally going down, supported in the heel pad, I'm then going to wrap the top of my hand over, and this would be a neutral grip where I can see two knuckles when I'm looking down, and the V created between the thumb and forefinger is pointing somewhere to the right of my chin, in between the chin and the shoulder, and that gets in a nice neutral position, and there's a slight cup in that lead wrist at that setup position. A strong grip would be where we are more on top and we can see three knuckles or more. And a weak grip with the lead hand would be twisted more under, and we can only see one knuckle on the lead hand, or you cannot see the logo on your glove at all. Now, like I said, there's many different ways to grip it, and there's no right or wrong, because if we look at PGA Tour players, you've got guys like Colin Morikawa, who is very weak, and you've got guys like Dustin Johnson, who is very strong, and then there's a whole mix in between that. So there is more than one way to do it. It just depends on how you move within the swing, what your wrists do, and then how your body moves as well. So now when we look at the trail hand, Again, there's different ways to do this. We can do, for beginners, it's okay if we do like a 10-finger baseball grip, because that is going to allow us to learn how to release the club and let the club head roll over a little. We can do an overlap grip where we put this pinky in between the index and middle finger, and we can also do an interlock, which gives you the most connection and control, in my opinion. And then from there, the curvature in your right palm should fit nicely over your left thumb. And then you're going to wrap it on top like that. This then creates a V in the trail hand, the right hand for a right-handed golfer, and it's also going to be pointing up in this zone between your chin and your right shoulder. Now, here is the biggest mistake I see in players, and even some good players, which affects how they can control the club face, is the thumb and forefinger of the trail hand. The best players have a short thumb, so they kind of pull this thumb up and in, and there's a connection between the base of the thumb and the base of the index finger, so that when we get on the club, it is nice and connected. A big mistake that I see in a lot of players is they stretch this thumb and pull this index finger under, which leaves a big space between the thumb and the forefinger, and then the thumb is too much over and has no control on the grip whatsoever, so the face can kind of get weird when we're swinging, and especially when we contact the ground. So we want to make sure that we pull the thumb up, get a short thumb, and connect it there. And something you can do is put a T in there just to make sure, because if you do it wrong, you won't be able to hold a T in between your thumb and index finger. So that's something that you can practice to make sure that that's in a good position, and then just look at a lot of the pros and you'll see that same position. Now, when we're talking about grips and how the style can impact the swing, one of the things I would say, just as a rule of thumb, for a player that doesn't have a lot of mobility and they can't really rotate a lot through impact, I would prefer a weaker grip. And the reason for this being is it allows us to roll the club and use our forearms a lot more. And that is then going to help square up the face coming through to get a little more speed as well. So this is really good for like senior players who struggle with club head speed, and we need to use that mechanism of the forearms to square up the face. On the other hand, if we've got a player who has really good lower body rotation, so like a Dustin Johnson, the really strong left-hand grip matches up very well, because as I rotate, I don't need to release the face as much with the left hand, so I can get in a much more stronger position there. So over time now, the more and more I see junior golfers, they have really fast hips, so it's not a bad idea to have a stronger left-hand grip, because it's going to match up with the faster hips coming through. So that's just something to kind of keep an eye on, and something you can change over time. And the other thing, the strong grip would incentivize us to rotate the hips a little bit more, but we need to know that we can actually get good hip rotation before we do that. Like I said, if it's an older player who has limited hip mobility, if we put a really strong grip and it releases and we don't have that hip rotation, the ball is just going to go way left. So if we weaken it, we can release it without the worry of it going too far left and still gaining a little bit more speed. So those are just some basics when you are building your grip, and some things to think about. The one final little thing I would talk about is grip pressure and how it should be taken in context. So regardless if you're using a neutral, strong or weak grip, you've probably heard professionals say they feel like they're holding it like a baby bird or toothpaste, or it's like a 4 or 5 out of 10 on how tightly they grip it. What we don't hear, or a lot of people don't know, is the average PGA or LPGA professional, their grip strength is almost double that of the average human, so amateur golfer. So when they say they are gripping at a 5 out of 10, for an average amateur, that would mean a 10 out of 10 on that same scale. So if an amateur doesn't have good grip strength and they grip it at a 5 out of 10, they then lose control and the club gets sloppy and impact gets sloppy. If contact's a little bit bad, it can twist the face. So something I would tell all players is really work on your grip strength, because that's going to help you control the club. And we want a tight grip in the fingers, but still have the ability to have loose wrists and relaxed shoulders and arms. We don't want to be so loose with everything that we can't control the face, and we don't want to be so tight with everything that we can't move. So feel tight fingers, and then everything else should be relaxed so that we can still control the club and move fluently, but we still have control of the club face without it twisting when we hit the golf ball. So those are some basics when you're building your golf grip, and it is very important that you kind of just keep an eye on it and make sure your grip doesn't change too much over time, because it's going to affect ball flight a lot. And I think if you work on that and keep an eye on it and maintain it, it will help your golf game a huge amount. So thank you for watching as always. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments and I will be happy to answer them.